I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organising the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pastor.
Cody, one of the things that comic books was for me growing up, which was my area of geekdom, although I love movies and TV, but comic books were really my escape. My escape from my life, my real world context and situations, and comic books were just all that for me.
I escaped into the History Channel television shows.
Wow. See, History
and
Channel.
Sports also.
Yeah, sports also became that.
Like, when I'm growing up, there's a ton of like Nostradamus shows and like conspiracy theory galore. I can tell you about 15 different theories on how JFK died.
Please don't. Please.
If you're looking for your JFK conspiracy theorist, I'm not that person, but I know the theories.
Some of those conspiracy theories are just why? Why do we care? Like, okay, so if the conspiracy is right and that there were people clandestinely planning to kill JFK, do we really want to know that?
Yes. But at the same time, I think it is what my friend Jack Nicholas, whichever one's not the golfer.
Then you're talking about the actor, and that's Jack Nicholson.
Thank you. I was correct the first time, but I always get confused.
Jack of Nichols, son of Nichols.
Yes. He asked so eloquently, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth."
Man, that took a lot of buildup to get there. I did not know that's where we were going. Okay. Anyways. I love that we do this show on pop culture.
I do too.
Because pop culture is an escape. And honestly, there was a bunch of real world things this week that could really get you down.
Yes.
If we dwelled in them. And we're happy to be here as an escape. So let's just dive into pop culture. This is Pop Culture Pastor. My name's Dave. He's Cody.
I am Cody.
And let's just get out of the real world and talk about Jonathan Majors. Oi! No!
So this one, it was painful.
Why was it so painful? Is it because he's a character we've been waiting for so long and he's a great actor and we just kind of fell for him?
So I will say, usually I don't elevate people to high standings. Like, very few people get there. If you get there, you're one of the fortunate ones. But for Jonathan, I could care less about Kang. Like, I'm excited Kang's here, and I'm excited that, like, some cool stories can be played out. But at the same time, I'm not a Marvel guy. So, like, Jonathan Majors, everything I've seen him in, phenomenal. You find out that he's a pastor's kid and that he carries a cup with him. And he says stuff about don't overfill the cup. Only take what you can handle. What's yours. And now, with all that being said, the allegations that come forward, because I've been one that has proclaimed we are in the major science.
Yeah, we're making a declaration
that with the seriousness of the allegations, we definitely want to be respectful to the victims and to the situation at hand. Whether he is innocent or guilty, the fun and jokiness of all that has to be put on hold.
We are suspending the major science for the moment.
Yes, and that we are going to be respectful to the due diligence and due process that is the justice system within the United States.
Now, if somehow you don't know what we're talking about, Jonathan Majors, who we've recently reviewed in movies such as Creed 3 and Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, He played Kang. He played Damien in Creed 3, both very well. Apparently, Saturday night was when all of this dropped. According to Variety, police say a 30-year-old woman called the New York PD, told them she'd been assaulted. She was then taken to the hospital and treated for minor injuries to her head and neck. Jonathan Majors was arrested and then released Saturday night on an order of protection, which is a restraining order. Mm-hmm. And Variety says police listed strangulation, assault, and harassment as potential charges. However, he was ultimately charged with 2 counts of assault in the 3rd degree, attempted assault in the 3rd degree, aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree, and harassment in the 2nd degree.
That's interesting.
I don't even know what all that means, but it's a lot of words, which makes me feel like it's not good.
Like, if it only involves one person, either an assault happened or it didn't happen. I don't know how you can say attempted assault and assault.
Well, okay, so
unless there's multiple instances of this happening. And
so the hard part about this, there's lots of versions out there already. I'm going to go off the police report.
That's the one that we should go off of.
The fact that she's reported this incident at all is probably a key thing. It's important to note.
Yes.
Domestic violence, nearly half of all survivors don't report the abuse to law enforcement.
This is true.
But there's still a lot we don't know about the incident. Now, here's what his team is saying. It didn't take them long to respond to this, by the way. His lawyer, Priya Chaudhry, told the LA Times that the woman had recanted her story in 2 written statements. His attorney also claims that there's video evidence of the alleged incident inside a taxi, and that also the statement by the taxi driver would exonerate him. I think it was an Uber, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or was it a taxi? I don't know. So far, that video has not been released or those statements been made public. But this is what his lawyer's statement was. Quote, Jonathan Majors is completely innocent and is probably the victim of an altercation with a woman he knows. We are quickly gathering and presenting evidence to the district attorney with the expectation that all charges will be dropped imminently. Now, they're wrong. The DA pressed charges anyways. So that's also kind of recent and major news that whatever evidence they presented to the DA was not convinced. Now, there were 2 things on social media. Normally, I would not give 2 cents of worth to anything on social media.
Yes.
But because of who made the remarks early on, that I thought it was worth noting. One was by, I'm gonna give you 2 tweets. Both of them have been deleted.
Huh.
I don't know. You can conclude what you want. I'm just telling you what's happening. One was Broadway director Tim Nicolai. He says this, quote, in a now deleted tweet, I'm just going to say this about Jonathan Majors and be done with it. Folks at Yale and the broader New York City community have known about him for years. He's a sociopath, an abuser. That is how virtually everyone speaks about him. It's a shame it took this long for him to be reported. Now, again, that tweet was later deleted. You can draw your own conclusions about what that means. Filmmaker A.B. Allen tweeted this in February. There's a particular actor, relatively new on the scene, who Twitter has violently fallen head over heels for, who in actuality is a vicious, cruel, abusive human being, both professionally and in his personal life. And every new viral thirst tweet about him drives me insane. On Saturday, when this was all breaking, he admitted that tweet was about Majors. All of those tweets have now been deleted. But those were 2 social media posts by not nameless nobodies, by people who you would think know. And this is, man, this is a problem. And Marvel's got a big problem now.
Before we get to Marvel.
Yeah, let's.
I do have issues with those tweets, though.
Yeah.
Because if you know that someone is violent, that there is a past of violence, and it's been geared towards people that you can solemnly say, this happened, report it. If you don't report it, you just had the statistic that half of all domestic abuse doesn't go reported, that you could be saving someone's life. I don't know this situation well enough. I'm not friends with Jonathan Majors or his acquaintances. But in the real world, if you see something odd, you see something hurtful and harmful, especially towards kids, towards individuals that look like they're being overpowered, call the police, call protective services, call whoever would be the responsible party to investigate it. At worst thing is you have wasted a little bit of time and energy. Best thing is you saved a life or lives.
It's well said. It's well said. Yeah. There was some banter over that very thing you talked about, like, because social media and the nature of it is, we just don't know. Just because those people have names and they put their name on it, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But there does seem to be some mounting evidence with these communities that he's been in, that he's at the very least maybe, a little rough around the edges, minimally, right? Like at minimum. And yeah, it makes you wonder, well, if this is such general knowledge, how come it wasn't? Right? How does someone get this far? Now, granted, these could all be false.
Could all be false, but like we also have the instances of Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Although Majors has not been in positions of that much authority where he can affect and derail someone's career as a producer of multiple movies, because he doesn't have that stature yet. But literally, if people would have reported Harvey a long time ago, there would be a lot less victims.
Yeah. Now, in the last few days since this broke, it's been really quiet. There hasn't been anything that's kind of dropped. No news has been forthcoming, which is interesting because here's the deal now, Cody, as it relates to the properties he's a part of. Now, one way or the other, the truth needs to come out. If it stays quiet, then his brand is damaged. Like, if nothing really ever amounts to this, there are some people who will just always think he's an abuser. There will some people who will think he's just always innocent until, something else happens or doesn't happen, right? Which is this is where it becomes the big problem for Marvel. Now, Marvel, he is Kang. Their plan is for him to, listen, there's variants of him. The last end credit scene for Ant-Man, the two end credit scenes both had him in it multiple times as many different characters.
Oh yeah. Many different variants of Kang. Like they could have, and I mean could have, casted 100 different actors to play each different variant, and it would have made sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's how you know that they're blindsided by this.
Yes. And now, I hate to go to the movie aspect of it or the entertainment aspect, but even if nothing comes of this, you have a tainted personality on screen. If something comes of this, you've invested a lot of time and effort and energy in presenting Kang as Jonathan Majors. Yeah. Whether it's Jonathan Majors with some eyeshadow, Jonathan Majors with his face painted blue, Jonathan Majors dressed as a caveman, whatever. You have presented all these different ways of Jonathan Majors, and you are now stuck.
Yeah. And so here's the deal. It's not quite like in a court of law, he's innocent until proven guilty. That's how our system should work.
Yes.
But this is a different situation with Marvel because, like we said, if nothing really ever comes with this, if the DA presses charges and he let's say he gets found innocent or they drop the charges, but then he settles with her in a civil way, like pays her money. Like, that's not going to be good enough for Marvel. Like, Disney fired the lady from The Mandalorian because she got political on Twitter, on social media. Like, and they did that. And like, by the way, I'm not really one of those people who are like, oh, how dare they? Like, no, man, this is business. And if you play the game, you're going to lose the game sometimes. This is a different world. This isn't the court of law. And so the businesses are going to protect their brands however they want to. And so this puts Marvel in a particularly weird situation. To me, in my eyes, he either has to be completely exonerated, right? All evidence, like she comes out, says, I made it up. The DA backs that up. The police, say, yep, we've investigated. He did nothing wrong. That either that happens, or honestly, I think Marvel's in a position where they almost have to either alter their story or recast, because they're not going to want to have him be the face of this whole phase with any questions lingering in the air. That's big time damage, especially at a part where their brand is already kind of taking a hit.
Potentially. I mean, we can say that they wouldn't go forward with this. They brought back James Gunn after they fired him, and they felt they were justified for firing him. But enough people that were acting on Guardian said, we're not going to do your movie. James Gunn got brought back. I mean, there's a lot of allegations and stuff around Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt still gets roles. Really, the only person that I can think of off the top of my head that was a big time actor that got his name tarnished is Johnny Depp, and that hasn't resurfaced with a lot of gusto to the heights that they once were, or in that same stratosphere. So
I would also add Kevin Spacey to that list.
Yeah, and I forgot about Kevin Spacey, but Kevin admitted that he did what he did.
Well, to some extent, like, he hasn't ever been found like guilty in a court of law, has he? Well, it's all been civil suits.
Well, the thing with the guy that sued him, it happened more than 7 years ago, so he couldn't press criminal stuff because it would happen in the late 80s or 90s.
But he's not really getting work either.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I think DC comes into play here with how they've reacted. Like, they're going full steam ahead with the Flash movie.
They are.
With Ezra Miller as the star. And it'll be interesting to see if Marvel reacts to that in a way where they try to distance themselves from Jonathan Majors, or if they just keep going full bore ahead. And I think a lot of it has to do with what comes next, what comes of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was saying, I think I feel like Marvel's almost kind of trapped in a corner of, he either gets completely exonerated or they've got kind of an issue with public, what the public's going to think.
And again, I will say that my first thoughts and cares are with the victim. If this happened the way it happened, if it didn't happen the way it happened, there's two people in conflict, and I don't like that either. So
yeah, we'd be remiss too, as long as we're talking about Marvel. They're having a tough couple weeks. I mean, pretty tumultuous. Maybe not tough, tumultuous. So they fired Victoria Alonso,
gone but not forgotten.
Who, there's that's shaping up into what's going to be a legal battle, I believe, because she's not happy with it. And just today, as we're recording this, they laid off Ike Perlmutter from his duties as Marvel Entertainment chairman. Now, that basically means he was the head of the board, the chairman.
I always thought that was Feige, that he just wore all the hats.
No, and this one, like, this made big headlines, but this one wasn't quite a shock because if you follow Disney at all, this guy was basically tried to lead a coup in the last 6 months or so.
He was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
He was trying to kind of take over, and he failed. And then they waited to this time to kind of get rid of him. Here's the interesting part. So Perlmutter is known for a couple things around Marvel.
I've been told he's a cheapskate.
One of them is that he said some things that were just weird. One of the things was, if I can find it here, I can't. There. Back in 2013, Ike Perlmutter had a lot of influence on Iron Man 3, where he made the call to change the film's villain from Rebecca Hall's Maya Hansen to Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian. He explained this decision on the idea that female villains wouldn't sell as much merchandise as male villains would.
Okay, so, I mean, bad logic for sure.
Yeah. He's also said some things during the whole, he was apparently kind of opposed to Disney's stance in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill. He kind of was outspoken about that. And so I think that this is not a coincidence of this. They're firing him now, right when they're having this other business with Victoria Alonso, who is a member of the LGBT community. And she's alleging, and kind of there's hints coming out that she's going to claim that Disney was anti-LGBT in their handling of her. So them firing this dude who's maybe been anti, who's also a Trump guy, I think that's pertinent information. It makes it look in a sort. I'm just saying, I think companies will do company things based on the way they look. This guy was going to go at some point. And I think they chose this time for a reason. You got the Jonathan Major stuff going on. You got the Victoria Alonso stuff going on.
I'm going to say this guy was being a jabroni with this decision back in 2013.
Yeah.
Literally Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn. Yeah. I know they're all DC properties, but DC has made female villains or anti-heroes that sell.
Yeah.
I mean, just that whole, if your company takes a stance and you speak out against what the company line is, even if the company's not really practicing it, it might be doing it just for more money. Which I've heard some fans within the fandom say that's how they feel Disney really is. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm saying that's how some feel. You run the risk of losing your job. If I bashed the agency I worked for, I shouldn't, or bash the policies that would help my agency. If I bash those, I really shouldn't be expecting to be employed there much longer.
Yeah. There's a lot of doubt about what's going on. Here's where there's no doubt. Marvel Studios, Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, all those Disney properties, they're in kind of like a make or break time, I think. There's some interesting times going on over there at Disney. It'll be interesting to see how they move forward with all this.
They should call Gwen Stefani because she was in No Doubt.
It's okay. All right. That's enough of that. We're going to get into the problems of another studio. Coming up next.
Or the solutions.
Yeah, maybe. We're going to review Shazam 2, The Fury of the Gods, and talk about the issues DC has around that movie, which you haven't been able to escape much of those. Coming up next. Stick around. All right, welcome back, Pop Culture Pastor. We are ready to talk about Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. Dave here, Cody here, and live on the Geek Phone, it's Scotty.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, Scotty?
Not much.
How are you?
I'm good. Ready to jump into this movie.
You are our resident comic geek of the round table, and really you kind of our DC geek of the round table to go along with Cody.
You're carrying what I am lacking.
Yeah, because although I had an affinity for Superman, especially, I wasn't a big reader of the other titles.
And let's be honest, he didn't start as a DC character. He was a Fawcett character.
You mean Shazam?
Shazam, Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Since you said Captain Marvel, can I ask you a question right off the bat?
Yeah, throw it at me.
This movie, it appears like they don't want to say Captain Marvel. Is that a copyright thing? Are they not allowed to use that
It
name?
is actually a copyright thing. In the interim of them arguing about who owned that character, especially DC and Fawcett arguing that he was a knockoff of Superman, in that time, that's when Marvel stepped in and created Captain Marvel. So then they copyrighted the name. And
So Marvel has the copyright.
It has a copyright on the name, yes.
Those jerk faces.
All
Of
because
course, you can see the big time fascist over at Marvel doing
That's
that.
just a shrewd business move.
Yeah,
Cody.
well, because they were too busy trying to fight. Fawcett was too busy trying to keep that character, let alone thinking about trying to keep that name. When DC was like, "You made a knockoff of Superman. We want the money you're making because you're outselling our flagship title."
Snap!
It's important to note that Captain Marvel's not a new thing for Marvel either.
No,
the character of Captain Marvel, who used to be a guy, by the way.
Yeah, and it was Captain Marvel.
But that's an old character. He's been around for a long time.
Older than me.
Yeah, definitely older than me and Cody. But not as old as the Fawcett Comics Captain Marvel / Shazam.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we saw Shazam, Fury of the Gods, or Shazam 2. We can refer to it as that. Yeah. Broad take on the movie. We will revisit this, I'm sure, but I just want to start off this because of everything surrounding this movie. I went and saw this movie with my wife. I had no expectations for it. I'd heard how little it was making. We sat in an absolutely empty theater showing it on 7:00 on a Friday night. It was second week out.
It was empty on the first weekend on Sunday for us too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so it's getting destroyed at the box office and by critics who I contend, a lot of YouTube critics who I contend, I don't think have seen this movie.
I don't think they have either.
Because I'm about to say something that's going to rock people's world. This movie's actually really good.
Yeah.
You just knocked my socks off.
Yes.
This movie is better than pretty much everything in Marvel Phase 4, except for maybe Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah. That was when I left the theater, I was like, this movie, and listen, speaking broadly about the movie, what I love about this and where I think Marvel has gone wrong in a lot of ways is they didn't try to reinvent the wheel.
No,
it's your standard hero story, but it's a story done well with heart and feeling and comedy. And it was a good mix of all those things. And it felt like it mattered. It felt like it meant something. Yeah. And I just really thought it was good. Cody, what did you think?
So I'll say that for me, I thought it was better than everything in Phase 4 of Marvel, with the exception of Spider-Man, unless you are a big Sam Raimi fan or you are a big Taika fan. If you were of those fandoms, those movies did you well. With that being said, this movie, so many heartfelt moments, and you can't help but fall in love with the whole family, whether they're in kid form or superhero form. They're funny. They interact, engage like a foster family that has been together for a while. And you get these tender moments, especially between Billy and the foster mom. I really appreciated those. I will agree with one thing that someone said before the movie, and that was Helen Mirren, that it was too complicated to explain by her. And I mean, I can explain the overall synopsis of the movie, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so you got to be following along. You got to pay attention because there's a lot of little details that make up how we get to Billy / Shazam fighting these three Greek gods.
Well, and I think, and Scotty can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think just the Shazam story in general just has a lot of lore to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would compare it especially, and there were some things comparable in some of the things you saw here, but I would compare a lot of that kind of lore to like Doctor Strange's lore. Like it's just really deep and kind of grand. As you go into it, which seems weird for a character that's a kid who turns into an adult version of himself. But
you get that more and more throughout the years, especially in the comics. The more you start to tie more and more to mythology and those things. So they picked up on a lot of that, even more in this one, even more than the first one, I would say.
Yeah. So just broadly, what did you think of the movie when you went and saw it? What was your reaction walking out of the theater?
I really enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of the first one. I'm a big fan of this character and the whole, I still call him Captain Marvel family. It's probably the first one's probably one of my favorite feel-good movies, just to go back and watch anytime. I felt like this one had the heart that the first one had, but I felt like this one had up to stake some. So you feel like there is some kind of urgency that I felt like maybe the first one misses a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like this one was a little more rounded than the first one, I think. Now I've gone back and forth like this one or the first one all week, but I really do enjoy it. And I agree. I think it's probably one of the better superhero movies we've got in the last year, 2 years, maybe 3 years if we want to go that far back. Because it doesn't feel like you said we're not reinventing the wheel. We're giving you what you want, even with the upping the stakes, but it also gives you some fun to play with. And you have a villain that, is not from the comics, but really helps get Billy and the rest of the family where they need to be, hopefully for a third one, which probably isn't going to happen, but it was a nice kind of setting along as well.
Oh yeah. So watching this, and I watched it the second weekend.
I did too.
I really felt awful in the theater. Like, oh, this is good. Yeah. And we're not going to get a third one.
Okay. Yeah. I felt the same way. And we'll get into this later because of all of the commentary around this movie and how it's getting blasted.
Yeah.
And I left that theater. I was kind of upset. I was just like, wait a minute. This is
one that deserves a sequel. This deserves a third one.
Yeah, well, it deserves to not be talked about like it's trash.
It deserves to be over 100 million, which it finally just crossed today.
Yeah. Holy cannoli.
Yeah. Let me give people the synopsis. Bestowed with the powers of the gods, Billy Batson and his fellow foster kids are still learning how to juggle teenage life with their adult superhero alter egos when a vengeful trio of ancient gods arrives on Earth in search of the magic stolen from them long ago. Shazam and his allies get thrust into a battle for their superpowers, their lives, and the fate of the world. Directed by David F. Sandberg, producer Peter Safran, which that's a name we know from the latest news because him and James Gunn are the new forerunners of the DC Studios stuff. And that's pretty much like it's a simple plot. It's a simple plot. That's what it is. It ties into the first movie through the MacGuffin in the first movie, the staff. Yeah. They do a good job of showing us how that happened in a scene.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of goes from there. Now, let's go on to what's good. What's good about this movie? Scotty, why don't you go first?
I think, we kind of hit it on that first bit. The family dynamic is still there. Even with the trade out of New Mary, who does fabulous coming into this, without being in the first one. I think she did really well. I think, we can't ever not talk about Zachary Levi. The man's amazing in whatever he does. I really enjoy Zachary a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I also feel like the little bits of comic book lore that you have in there, like I said, it's not based on anything from really the comics. So these are not villains that were in the comics. They were created for this movie. The other really nice thing that I really enjoyed, and I wish that, the commercials leading up hadn't given it away, but spoilers, tying it into Wonder Woman was a nice kind of setup.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense to me as he's a teenage boy.
Yes.
So him having almost an idolization of Wonder Woman in a lot of different ways, like not the same way you would idol Superman, but the way you would idolize of a very attractive female as a teenage boy who's a superhero. And I just thought all that stuff was kind of genius as well.
And especially with her being, a child of the gods, at some point you have to have that interaction. So it makes sense to bring her into that world.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I just wish we wouldn't have given that away 2 weeks ago, but
well, to echo the first thing you said there too, man, listen again, they don't reinvent the wheel. It's a simple story. The hero is going along fine. He gets kind of humbled, he then has to fight something bigger than him for the fate of the world but also the people he cares about. It's your standard hero kind of arc. Yeah. And so it seems simple, but let me tell you, the foster family stuff was really effective, as I found it was in the first movie. They kind of go a little bit harder into it in this movie. Yeah. And I thought it was really genuine and really hit hard. I mean, I had tears a couple times in this movie, which I was just shocked as you. Like, I did not sit down in this theater feeling like I was going to be emotionally affected by this in any way. And yet there I was, having real emotion and attachment to these characters. I thought it was great. The foster family stories, it was believable, and you feel for all these characters. Which means there's good character development.
I honestly felt for Steve, and Steve was just a pin. I mean, honestly, like,
he was literally a ballpoint pen.
They made the story around certain objects and characters so well that you're like, oh, Steve, why do you keep writing?
Yeah, he was pretty literal.
Yeah.
Was Steve the magic ballpoint pen?
Yes. Which, I mean, this movie had a lot of Easter eggs that either tie into other things, the comic book lore, which Steve in the Historama is something that is well known in the Shazam verse.
Yes.
But Annabelle was in this movie again. So David F. Sandberg, who was all about the creation of the Annabelle movie and stuff, he put that in this movie.
I don't even know what's Annabelle. I haven't seen those movies.
This is her third cameo, actually, after Aquaman and after the first Shazam.
I missed her in Aquaman. I'll have to go back.
Yeah.
So the Conjuring movies,
yes,
introduce kind of the realm of Ed and, is her name Lorraine?
Yes, Lorraine.
Yeah, and they drive out demons.
Oh wow!
It's based on real life stuff, allegedly. And one of the things that really happened was a possessed doll, and they named it Annabelle, and they made a movie about this possessed doll named Annabelle.
And she was in this movie?
Yeah, she was in the pediatrician's office.
Also in the pediatrician's office, if you look on the wall, Starro is on the wall.
Starro.
Yes.
It's happening again.
Yes.
All right, Cody, what was some of the good stuff for you in this movie?
I'll say all the jokes around like Shazam's acronym. Hey, I love the callback to that Shazam actually stands for like all these deities and historical figures. But then when we get to the wisdom of Solomon, it's like Solo Man and the wisdom of Saruman, and like it just kept going, and I'm like, I'm here for this.
Can I say that, by the way, this also shoots in the face the whole idea of like anyone who would have argued with you about Thor: Love and Thunder. It's like, oh, you just don't like humor in hero movies. Like, no, I like humor in hero movies, and in this one, they've done the balance was good.
Yeah.
The stakes were not lessened by the humor. And in fact, the humor wasn't so much written. Like, it wasn't like there were jokes clearly written, but the humor is more in the way that it's acted.
Oh yeah. Zachary I think does a great job portraying someone that is like a 17-year-old inside of a grown man's body.
Yeah, I agree. Zachary Levi was great. He was great.
You
in this
know,
movie.
you even get Michael Gray, the original Billy Batson film TV show, to come in and play in on that joke as well.
Oh yeah, Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
that guy. It's getting to the point where anyone that looks out of place, is a cameo.
Yeah,
of some sort. It's an Easter egg. It's like, oh, because that guy got on the screen. I was like, oh my goodness, who's that guy?
So the other funny Easter egg from the show is when they're at the junkyard. The RV is the exact RV from that they traveled in the old show.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, Scotty.
Yeah, throw it at me.
So the guy that was at the museum, who also was in Peacemaker at the hospital, the janitor, like, is this supposed to be two separate characters?
I assume so. He's not credited as the same character, so
because otherwise he got a big promotion.
Yeah, he's been hopping from country to country then too.
Yes.
Cody, what other good things you got? You got any other good stuff?
I literally think that they did a great job casting not only the adult actors for the Shazam family, but their child counterparts deliver well, especially Freddy. But of course, Freddy, we saw it in the movie It. The guy's phenomenal. That his line about they're gazebos, Mom, makes me laugh every time.
Like, listen, and I'm gonna echo this thing you've just listed as well. The acting in this movie is really kind of what sent it for me into this realm of like, this is a good movie, because these actors are all very good. First of all, they have charm. Like these supporting actors, who many of them, they're not household names. Jack Dylan Grazer, who played Freddy. I don't know who this kid is, but he was awesome.
You gotta watch it.
You fall in love with his character. He's funny. He affects other emotions too. Rachel Ziegler as Anthea was great. Of course, so the family dynamic of all of it, even their adult counterparts, their hero counterparts. We already mentioned Zachary Levi, but Adam Brody was really good as Freddy's superhero version, or Captain Every Power, which is hilarious.
Yes.
But like even the kind of side sibling characters, Pedro, Eugene, they were all really good in their moments, and they have this charm, and it really makes you fall for the family that much more. They seem like a real family, and that makes all of the stuff that comes later, all the emotional beats, really work in this movie. Yep. And again, I had tears. Not only that, I think this movie is good, and I think you don't have to reinvent the wheel with the story, because you've got people like Helen Mirren and Diamond Honshu. These are Academy Award winners.
And Lucy Liu.
Well, okay. I'm going to draw a line there. Lucy Liu was a little cringy for me. She's the only part, but we'll talk about that later. Helen Mirren was awesome, though. And so was Diamond Honshu.
And so is Diedrich Bader.
Yes.
I'll also bring him up later, but now's not the time. Okay, so that's the good stuff. If we're gonna segue into the bad stuff, I'll just go right into Diedrich Bader.
No,
is that you gonna bring him up?
Well, I'll say that, like, if you're going to go bad with Diedrich Bader,
no, not him specifically.
They killed the most beloved character from the Drew Carey show.
It was weirdly a heavy moment in a movie that really wasn't that heavy.
No,
it caught me off guard. Like, it was graphic and rough.
It was like the first time you're watching The Happening before you find out the trees are what's doing it. Like, oh my goodness, why is this person jabbing their eyes out?
Am I watching a snuff film? What is happening right now? And then at the end of the movie, you're just like, okay, well, now I'm not so shocked. It was just a sucky movie. Right? But yeah, it was, for me, that scene was weirdly heavy in a movie that just wasn't that heavy. And so that scene kind of just stuck out like a sore thumb to me.
So there's a fun Easter egg with Diedrich Bader, if you notice it. When Freddy is talking to him, he's getting beat on. He's wearing a Batman t-shirt, and Diedrich Bader voiced Batman in Brave and the Bold.
Oh,
he
interesting.
did.
Yeah.
It's happening.
The other thing that I thought was a slight negative, and I already kind of alluded to this, and since I already did, I'll go ahead and talk about it. Lucy Liu is rough, man. It might not be that she might not be a bad actress. I don't think she's a bad actress, but when you're surrounded by Helen Mirren and Diamond Honshu, her stuff was just weirdly cringy for me. And like, it also doesn't help that the movie was just really, really good, I thought. And so her scenes just kind of stuck out again, like a sore thumb. And did you guys feel that, or am I off base?
Her kind of like yelling and trying to be direct and matter of fact didn't come across or land the way I would want it to.
Maybe Lucy Liu is just so sweet and so angelic that she's just not a great enough actress to pull off being evil. Maybe that's it.
Maybe, I see. I didn't hate her, but I do get what you're saying. I think there is some that I don't know. I felt like maybe it was. I don't know. I don't want to say it was writing either. I don't know. Maybe maybe she brought too much energy to that.
Well, it's almost like
quite possibly
her and Helen Mirren's character should have been switched. That Helen Mirren should have been Calypso and Lucy Liu should have been Hespera.
That would have been intriguing.
Yeah.
Because Helen Mirren is very believable as someone who's playing an evil, because she's very, like, early on, it seems like she's going to be the big bad, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Maybe it's miscasting. Maybe it's as simple as that. I don't know.
My other question is, with Helen Mirren and we have Aquaman, we have these other characters. At one point, is Billy going to recognize that people around him are looking like characters from his favorite movie franchise, Fast and the Furious?
This is true.
Okay. Do you guys have any stuff that's not so good?
I'll save it for the winners and losers.
Okay. All right. Well,
I don't have anything bad. I think.
Well, yeah, and listen, with Lucy Liu, I will fully admit I'm being nitpicky. To me, she just stuck out, and it might just be because Helen Mirren is Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
And I don't think Lucy Liu would be insulted by that. She basically said she did this for a paycheck, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what the whole cast has come out and said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, greatest story ever told award. Are there any biblical themes?
Billy pulls a Jesus.
He does.
He does.
He absolutely does.
He does.
Quite literally.
Sure.
He dies for everyone. And it's so heart-wrenching.
Oh man, they fooled me. I thought he was really dead. I'm sitting there in the theater crying like a baby.
I knew he had to come back, but I didn't know how they were going to make him come back. And so then you have your cameo of Wonder Woman actually there.
Yeah.
It does tie in well, but Billy willing to lay down his life not only for his friends, but his family.
Can I say the part where he reaches out of the grave like a horror movie was hilarious? That was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it was really easy to pick up on.
It was.
Also, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that literally the wisdom of Solomon or Solomon.
Yes.
He's the biblical guy.
Yes. Shazam. The S stands for Solomon.
Mm-hmm. And so the wisdom of Solomon is a thing in the Bible. He asks for God. He asks God for that wisdom, and God grants it to him.
And becomes a wise leader that makes some foolish mistakes along the way.
And writes one of Cody and I's favorite books of the Bible, Ecclesiastes.
And Proverbs. I mean, they're both really good.
Yeah. So that's straight from the Bible. Not Shazam. Solomon.
Yeah.
Okay. Scotty, who wins this movie for you?
For me, I think I go back to Zachary Levi carrying it again. I think he really is the winner in this whole thing. And I think my next close would be the child actors along with the adult actors. Just how great that casting is between the two.
Yeah, their chemistry is great.
The chemistry is great. And the other thing is, and I talked about it early on in this conversation, but the young lady coming in for Mary, she has moments, some great moments in the second one that chemistry is there. It could have easily not been there with her coming in last minute to replace the original actors, but you feel it, and you feel like I don't want to, it sounds bad, but you feel like you forget about that she wasn't married in the first one. You kind of forget about that actress from the first one.
The actress's name is Grace Carolyn Curry, who has been in let's see.
This movie.
She was in Annabelle Creation.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only one you've ever heard of.
Yeah.
She's TV shows. She's been in Ghost Whisperer, Jennifer Love Hewitt show. She's been in Bones. Yeah. So she's been around a little bit, but not a big name actress. But yeah, she did great. Cody, who wins this movie?
Okay, so I will butcher his name, so I'm going to ask you to say it. The Wizard.
Diamond Honshu.
Yes. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
I wish he's used in more movies and in bigger roles.
Yeah.
Basically, it's thanks to the Shazam series, and was he in Guardians 1?
Yes, he's in.
And so, those are the things that he's done most recently, and I feel awful.
And the funny thing is, he's in Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah,
but I might have intentionally forgotten. I don't know. And it's between him and Cooper Andrews, aka Papa of the Foster family, because he's just a lovable guy. No matter if he's playing Victor Vasquez, which is the foster dad in this movie, or he's playing Jerry in The Walking Dead. Yeah. More of those two actors, please.
Diamond Honshu was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in America. He was the fourth African male to be nominated for an Oscar. He also won the National Board of Review Award for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in Blood Diamond in 2006.
Oh, yeah. The dude has talent. Yeah. I just don't know why he's not being used.
Yeah. I love him in Gladiator. Gladiator is one of my favorite movies, and I just love his character in Gladiator. I love his chemistry with Russell Crowe in that movie, and I think he's a wonderful actor. And yeah, you wonder why he doesn't get more major parts.
So good he plays two different Marvel characters, and so good he plays two different DC characters, because he's an Aquaman too.
Wow. Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Aquaman's not high on my I think I fell asleep watching it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna say the winner of the movie is and this is gonna be counterintuitive to what's going on with him in social media right now. He's getting absolutely lambasted in social media, but I think the proof is in the pudding. The people that see this movie will see that Zachary Levi is a real talented dude. He's great in this movie. He's funny. He carries gravitas when he needs to. And I just think, I think you're right, Scotty. I think he carries this movie, even surrounded by great actors.
Yeah. And
he was wonderful.
I figured that one or more of you would say him. So I went off to being
well, but look, you could make a case for a lot of people. I almost said David Sandberg, who's on record as saying, well, I'm not doing superhero movies anymore.
I don't blame him.
Because he's I tried and failed. And I want to say, bro, you didn't fail.
No.
This is a good movie.
Especially when you have Zachary face to face in those moments with Helen Mirren, and he's going toe to toe, and it is completely believable. And he is at that level with her.
Yeah.
That, for me, proves the level that he's at.
The Go Get Him Next Time award. Who's the loser of this movie?
Okay, I got this.
Can I go first?
Okay, well now you're sabotaging, but yeah.
No, it just ties in with my winner. The loser of the movie is also Zachary Levi.
That is realistic.
And it depresses me like heck to say it, because I think it's unfair. I think it's not his fault.
No.
I think it's The Rock's fault. We'll get into that. And Warner Brothers, we'll get into that. But that's my loser of the movie. Zach, he's the winner and he's the loser. Cody?
It works. That's justifiable. So if we're not going with Steve, because he just kept writing everything, then I'm going to go with someone that is unfairly being criticized on social media. and it's because she's married to James Gunn.
Oh, okay.
Jennifer Holland, who is in this role of being Amanda Waller's like go-to person as a handler for these superheroes or people with powers.
Not Diebeard?
Not Diebeard.
Okay.
Because she's getting raked across the coals of nepotism. James Gunn cast you in this movie, and James is like, I wasn't at the helm yet.
Which, like, look, and we're going to get to this. Yeah, it wasn't his fault. It was The Rock's fault, not her fault.
Because we could have had a very different ending for the post credits.
Should have had a very different ending in post credit scene. But we'll get to that.
So, yes, Jennifer is unfairly being bashed upon just because she exists and is married to the new head of DC.
Like, look, there's some toxic fandom out there.
Yeah.
I don't get it with her. It's like, well, she's not bad. Like, what's your problem with her? There's lots of, like, dude, his brother's been in every Guardians movie. His highest credit before this was the Gilmore Girls, and he's been in these big, huge budget movies. Nobody says a word.
The Gilmore Girls is
he's in Suicide Squad as Weasel.
Yeah,
what?
He's in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Weasel and Counterman.
Yeah. So, like, whatever. It's people are toxic.
Yes.
Which I think leads to my loser in this whole thing. I think my loser of this movie is the toxic fandom who boycotted this movie and didn't come out to see this movie.
Oh man, yeah, you're lying. If there's and not only that boycotted it, but there are geek style pages like in YouTube channels that I follow that are just blasting this movie, and I'm just certain they haven't actually seen the movie.
No, I guarantee they haven't.
Because this movie is good.
Yeah.
And I've heard nothing but people bashing on it. And I think it's because there's such a rift in the DC fandom. Yeah. So like so many of these people are Zack Snyder fans that they just don't want to say this is good. They don't.
But my thing is this: I'll argue Zack Snyder's trilogy any day of the week. But at the end of the day, I can argue for both sides. I love what we've got here, but I also love what Zack's done. But it's not going to drive me enough to boycott any of these movies.
Yeah, well, because at the end of the day, we're geeks and we like this. We want them to make good stuff. And like, look, one thing I've always said, because I did not enjoy Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League, the 4-hour thing. Like, I thought it was better than the one they put in the theaters. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But the bar was low, you know? Yeah, but I didn't really enjoy that. But I don't have a problem with people that did. Like, if you liked that, great. I don't think I was a deep enough DC fan to appreciate everything he threw into that. Like, it was just overloaded and bloated for me. But
and I think you also have to be a fan of the style and artistic vision he has, which it's very distinct and it works in some things. And for some people, it doesn't.
Yeah. If it fits the story, like I love 300. I think
Watchmen,
300 is absolutely excellent. I like The Watchmen.
Yeah.
Even though he splits off from the source material.
He does.
But that's fine. I enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, I'm not a Zack Snyder hater. And I guess what I'm saying is I can appreciate that people like his stuff.
But I think at the end of the day, because this now we are losers, especially in that second post-credit scene with Mr. Mine. We set up for the monster squad, and here we go now. We're never going to see that built.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into this part, because this is now we're going to get into the stuff that's going on around this movie.
Yeah. The sad thing was, before we ever got to watch it, because we were at Comic-Con, Planet Comic-Con, is there's like all this press stuff that's dropping left and right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more talk about the movie, but that's not directly aimed at what is being presented. It's just what happened behind the scenes and what wasn't.
So it's been interesting because all this Marvel stuff has been dropping the same time this DC stuff. Like, listen, the stuff around this movie, the Shazam movie, is, well, first of all, let's just say what it is. It's a huge bomb in the realm of superhero movies.
Yeah.
It's going to end up losing more money than Morbius did, which is is a gut shot. I mean, I don't know how to put that any other way.
No.
And there's been all this finger pointing going on between Zachary Levi. Well, not between. It's been mostly from Zachary Levi, and it all centers around this article that came out from The Watch, I believe.
Yeah.
And it centers around The Rock. So The Rock, and we talked extensively about it, the Black Adam movie that came out last year, how the hierarchy was going to change according to The Rock.
The attempted coup during, before.
Yeah, pretty much. So let's get into this, because the Wrap, not the Watch, the Wrap reported this, that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kneecapped the Shazam sequel. Basically, what they revealed in this article was that The Rock allegedly vetoed a planned post-credit scene of Black Adam that would have featured Zachary Levi's Shazam being recruited by the Justice Society, Hawkman in particular, who obviously was a prominent thing in Black Adam movie. Now, he stopped that. And Johnson, apparently, because he has some weird executive producer role with Black Adam, that he maintains some control over this. Scotty, do you know how to explain that better?
Yes, and that's kind of the go-to. The other thing was, the way I understand it is, yes, he did have the veto on it. He also had the veto back when the first Shazam came out and argued that they shouldn't encapsulate him into the first movie, which I agree with. I think if you would have left all that Savannah stuff and him in there, it would have been way too much.
Yeah. So he turns down a cameo in the first one. But basically, through the course of all this, he has absolutely refused to integrate these characters who are all part of the same story. Like Shazam and Black Adam, that Black Adam is a character in the Shazam verse.
Yes.
That's where he comes from. Like their similarities in their costumes are not an accident.
No.
So the Wrap apparently quotes an insider who alleged that Dwayne Johnson has a thinly veiled disdain for the Shazam franchise. So what they reported is that he undermined Shazam in these ways, and by also spending virtually his entire Black Adam press tour hyping the showdown between Black Adam and Superman rather than Black Adam and Shazam. So in a very real way, by the way, featuring Henry Cavill in the end credit scene, when Henry Cavill, as we now know, did not have a deal in place to come back.
No.
Oof. The Rock did it on his own.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing I've heard, and I agree that he is part of this problem too. But I've also heard by the time they came back to him for the cameo for this second Shazam, he'd already been fired as Black Adam.
Yes.
So it's, do I really want to go back to somebody who's fired me just to work? So I get that too, but at the same time, the other thing is, suppose you have everybody pointing fingers. You got Saffron saying it was The Rock's fault, and then and The Rock has not come out and said yay or nay either way, and stayed pretty quiet. But some people from his campus said no, Saffron blocked it, and that he had already been fired. So I think the bigger nuisance in this situation was that at any point the head of Warner Brothers could have stepped in and had this taken care of.
Yeah. Well, so this is what the article in the Wrap says. A Hollywood insider quoted as saying this: instead of making a movie, Dwayne Johnson wanted to extend his brand and make a brand centered on himself. That was a direct quote from whoever this Hollywood insider is that they don't name. Dwayne went around everyone, and it didn't sit well with Warner Brothers. And so when the movie comes out and is disappointing at the box office, all of that blows up. And now this movie that got kind of, like they said, they put it in a perfect terminology. It basically got kneecapped. Like they took it out at the legs. This movie had no chance.
So I have an insider.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. My insider says Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was being a jabroni. That insider was myself. But I will say, within The Rock's previous contracts in other franchises, including Fast and Furious, which Billy is a huge fan of.
Yes.
He can't take the last hit. He can't be the villain. He has to be a hero of sorts, even if it's an anti-hero. He has to appear heroic. He can't tarnish his Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson brand. So I 100% believe that quote about that Dwayne was trying to build a brand, and the Black Adam has a cool logo, has a cool color scheme, has that tough persona if you go the full anti-hero route versus making him a villain. It fits perfectly with Dwayne's brand. But if you don't fit within the source material that you're working with, which is the Shazam verse, you basically have just put all of your hopes in one basket, and that basket is shattered in a million pieces.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, jabroni.
So there's a lot of people who said Zachary Levi has been kind of cringy this past week on social media because he has on Instagram shared the rap article, shared the allegations about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and then wrote "The truth shall set you free." Now he took some flack for that, but he later took to Instagram Live to insist he wasn't blaming anybody for the failure of Shazam 2, and only shared the article because quote, "because I don't want to be blamed for things that are not on me." But he also confirmed that what they said in that article was true, that the plans for the end credit scenes were quote thwarted. And so
I was okay with him sharing.
Yeah, but social media is weird, and because Zachary Levi has said some conservative things politically, he gets blasted on social media a lot and called cringy, even if he's not really being cringy. So it just is what it is.
But I also think at the end of the day, like I said, I think, at the end of the day, Warner Brothers could have stepped in either direction.
Either
way.
Well, the Warner Brothers saw dollar signs, right?
Well, Warner Brothers had too much turmoil within their own other companies.
Yeah.
Because literally they were losing money. That's why Discovery, Warner Brothers combined. And DC was constantly in turmoil about, should we go with the Snyderverse or should we go somewhere else? And it was just back and forth. You got to have some singular direction, a vision, if you're going to have a verse of anything. Otherwise, just make solo independent movies like the Batman.
Yeah. I mean, they needed Black Adam to make money because they were in a, they were in a corner. They were in a tough spot. And they had The Rock, who is a star. And so you can almost see the logic where they were like, well, just let him cook. Just let him cook. And he made a subpar movie. And by the time they noticed the destruction that was being wrought, it was too late.
Yeah.
I still think that the Justice Society members in that movie were phenomenal.
Yeah, I thought that portion of Black Adam was good. I liked them.
I'm okay with Dwayne stuff, although at times it just felt very monotone, very singular, that there was no emotion whatsoever. And I'm like, oh, this guy lost his son, and has been trapped for thousands of years and no emotion.
Let's be really honest. With all the keeping Shazam and Zachary Levi at arm's length that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did, Shazam 2 is 100 times better than Black Adam as a movie. It's just so much better. Scotty, what was that?
I agree. Shazam 2 is a better movie than, and the other thing for me is now you have two movies that have created post-credit scenes that are going to go nowhere. And the other thing is, if you would have gotten The Rock and done the post-credit scene, was it going to go anywhere either?
No, not at this point. But if he doesn't block it from the beginning, Scotty, maybe they continue in their roles.
Yeah.
Or if you just had, because one of the rumors was Aldous Hodge and other members of the Justice Society would have been there. that if you had just the Justice Society, you could kind of forget Black Adam was a thing, and then down the road readdress it.
Yeah, you could have folded the Shazam verse characters into whatever James Gunn and Safran were going to do. You really could have, and I think Dwayne the Rock Johnson, as Cody so eloquently put it, is a jabroni and kind of ruined it. He just did, and I don't think there's any way around that. Because again, my bottom line for this movie is it's just so much better than Black Adam. It deserves to be recognized as better. And the fact that everybody is pooping on this movie kind of makes me upset because it's good.
It's really good. There's no qualms either way. But like you said, yet again, I feel like the ones who are pooping on it have not seen this movie.
The end question is this: is this just the perfect conclusion to the ineptitude of Warner Brothers, though? Is this the way it just should end before they start something new?
That one of the best movies of their recent run of superhero movies does not do well in tanks
because of their own mismanagement.
I mean, you reap what you sow. Because this movie, the management and the making of it didn't just happen yesterday. No. So we can't say that James Gunn and Peter Safran had huge hands in it, even though Safran's company was the producing company on it.
But yet again, it's the continued problem.
Yes.
The problem, didn't just start today. It started clear back on BBS. It continued on Suicide Squad, and then yet again, when you fire Zack Snyder after his daughter has passed away on Justice League, bringing a whole new director and shoot a whole new movie. So it's still that, you might have cleared house and got rid of some of those people that were involved in that, but the mindset is still in that company that is ruining these projects.
Yeah. Like, guys, let me ask you a question. What if The Flash is really good and it's not going to go anywhere? Like, then they would have had two movies at the end of this run that were actually good, but because of what happens, like,
so the storyline with the Flash, there's like 1,000 different ways they can go with it, and it could be honestly the resetting factor within the DC.
Do you really think that's what it is, though?
I do.
No, I don't.
They've reshot so much here recently since James Gunn's been
and if you ask Tom Cruise,
but James Gunn has also been proven to be a liar. Can we admit that?
No.
Cody says no. Scotty says yeah. Because he said a lot of things about Shazam. He was real coy with the way he talked about Shazam because he didn't want what happened to happen.
I think that if it would have grossed like $500 million, they would have found a way to keep it.
But here's the other thing. James Gunn today is also still trying to keep his brand. He has a Marvel movie that comes out in a couple of months that Marvel is scrambling, where he did the same thing that happened last weekend on Shazam that happened in the Guardians.
Yeah.
So he's not just trying to save his own brand. He's also trying to save his last ditch at Marvel too.
It's really interesting because, man, Marvel needs that movie to hit. They need it to hit.
And this is the Marvel movie I'm least worried about. Out of all the ones that have been announced.
Normally I would, but when Scotty says that, it does make you think like, oh man, this is an important movie. Like Guardians 3 is weird because it's not just important for Marvel and Disney. It's important for DC and James Gunn that it hits.
Well, and you have the Snyder followers who will boycott that movie just like they did this Shazam movie just to prove a point that he's not the person to be at DC.
I got to tell you, man, the Snyder people, they seem awfully toxic to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the extreme fans within any fandom prove that fan is short for fanatic and that they'll say and do about anything. And I mean, I would classify myself as someone that really loved the Snyder cut and loved his directorial vision and would have loved to see the end process if it was uninterrupted by Joss Whedon and about 15 wonders by DC.
Yeah.
Just because we always get the happy-go-lucky superhero movies, and this is kind of a darker, more somber tone. And to see how that plays out in its entirety would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But
the
I
other
do.
stuff, the other side of the coin is Flash could be a thing that they still flock to because you still have a lot of Snyder intact in that movie.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
but let me ask you this. This is off on a tangent a little bit because we talked about Jonathan Majors at the beginning of this pod. Where are we at with the Flash? Because a lot of the stuff that people brought up this weekend when we were talking about Jonathan Majors was a kind of revisiting the situation of Ezra Miller. Do we support this movie? I mean, I almost don't want to go see the Flash.
I think the thing for me, I've said from the get-go, is that he's not the only one in that movie. We have, Michael Keaton back. We have Affleck back. We have supposedly Gal Gadot back.
Okay, but Scotty, the difference is we've talked about how interesting it'll be to see how Marvel handles Jonathan Majors' situation. The difference is that DC hasn't backed off of Ezra at all.
No.
And the stuff Ezra did is beyond maybe what Jonathan Majors is accused of. Like, it's not alleged. We know there's video, there's evidence that Ezra Miller has done some terrible things. And like, they just seem to be kind of just brushing it under the rug. I don't know. It makes it hard, man. Because if Jonathan Majors is guilty of what he did, then I don't want him in my Marvel movies either. Right?
Yeah.
Like, if he's guilty, then they have to recast. Get rid of him. And that comes from someone who kind of likes his work.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's kind of rough. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it.
But yet again, I always come back to the thing of, I grew up a Cosby kid, and that's hard to take too. But at the same time, and talking about Josh Whedon, as a Whedon guy still love Buffy, still love Firefly. But I've had to bring myself to a thing that you have to separate the art from the artist. And, and this being the last thing we're going to see Ezra in, no matter what Gunn is saying, okay, let's ride this out and be done.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
And I've seen several podcast and entertainment insiders comment and say, our worst fear is this is going to be really great.
Yeah, right.
And we're going to enjoy it because this is kind of the unofficial send-off of Ezra from DC.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a way that you can kill off this version of the Flash and you launch into a different universe, and that different universe has some similar looking characters, kind of like there's similar looking Kangs out there.
Yeah.
And
let me be clear. James Gunn, his behavior has kind of made me nervous, but I'm rooting for him. I want the DC universe to be good. He's doing first movie out of the gate, my favorite character in DC, which is Superman. I want it to be good. I'm rooting for him. So
Brightburn was good. I trust that he can make an actual Superman movie.
Okay.
Now, have you guys heard the rumor about that movie?
The Superman Legacy?
Yes.
I don't know. Probably not. You tell me.
The rumor that hit this week was that the Superman in question is not Clark Kent. It's Jonathan Kent, Superman's son and Lois's son.
Oh, no. No, I don't want
Dave's not for that.
No.
The thing is, if you go that route, that's how you get around, the conversation that supposedly Henry Cavill had with Gunn about coming back at some point.
No, I don't like that. I don't care. I don't care about Jonathan Kent. I want Clark Kent. I want the real character.
And maybe that's not the case, but that's the rumor that's floating now.
You want to do Brave and the Bold with Damian Wayne as Robin? That's great. But he's not Batman. I want Bruce Wayne.
Yet.
I want Bruce Wayne. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hate that rumor. I hate it. I'm just telling you, Scotty, I hate it. Okay. How many? Let's end Shazam. Let's in the talk. How many lightning bolts out of 10 do you give this movie, Scotty?
I give it 10. I love
it. Scotty!
Yeah.
I almost fainted. All the blood rushed to my head. Scotty's a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
It's a solid 9.
Yeah. I was thinking 8.5. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't really give anything a 10. So 8.5 is good for me. That's a good movie. And Shazam 2 is good. All right. There you go. that's we wrapped up our Shazam review. Now it's time for Comics Conclave. Comic Conclave, Scotty. This month we read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. I'm Scotty, I'm just gonna be honest, this is a little depressing. It's kind of a downer.
It was.
It is, but
at the very end, I was like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this about the turtles.
It's so real and gritty and post-apocalyptic.
I've said this, and everybody's probably heard me say this more times, but I've read this graphic novel probably more times than I've read anything in the short time it's been out, and every time it hits me, I bawl. I'm a huge Ninja Turtles guy, so the thing for me that really worked was that anybody can come to this, no matter what version of Turtles that you grew up with, either the 80s cartoon, the Mirage comics, the reboot comics, the Nickelodeon rebooted run, you still get that emotional hit.
The Archie comics.
Yeah, the Archie comics, yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised because I'm not a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guy. That comes so like I'm around when it first starts. I'm heavy into my comic book reading and loving when they first start making comics, and like, what is that, 1986, somewhere around there, 85? 84 is when the first ones come out, and those are pretty gritty.
Yes.
Like, they're black and white, they're violent, and when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles becomes a kid's thing, I'm not really all that into it. I liked the early stuff, but I wasn't a super fan because they weren't easy to get a hold of.
No, they were not.
They were rare comics, even back then. Low print numbers. And
low reprint numbers as well.
Yeah, so I dug them, but wasn't a super fan. So I never really get into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I found this an easy read, easy to follow, and emotionally resonant. I was invested in it.
My friend Kevin did a great job with it.
Your friend Kevin Eastman. Now, Cody met Kevin Eastman at Comic-Con, and so now they're best buds.
They're best buds.
My right hand gave him a fist bump.
Scotty, what else do you want to say about this?
Some little background story, and like Cody said, we just saw him at Planet Comic-Con. He talked about it again. I heard this story before, but the gist was that him and Peter, once they got heavily into Turtles, the first issue was pretty much supposed to be just a standalone issue. So that's why, spoilers, Shredder's dead by the end of that first issue. Because they were going to be one and done, and that was it, until they seen that they had sold what they had sold copy-wise and kept coming back. So deep into the run, the cartoon happened, the toys happened, the movies happened, the video games happened, the Archie comics happened. So they felt like they spread themselves thin. And then finally, after a while, finally came back to the title and wrapped up, a little over 60 issues. And at that point, they both were at a point of, especially Kevin, the question was, what is our end game? So him and Peter laid out this kind of blueprint of like, hey, this is where we're going. No matter if it takes 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 40 years down the road, this is where we'll end at. And then that template kind of got pushed aside and ended up all over the place and forgotten about. So when, Eastman left and sold all his rights back to Laird, and then Laird sold to Nickelodeon. When Nickelodeon came in, IDW took over and rebooted the comics. So they hit over 100 issues now. So it's the longest running Turtles run ever. He goes, I felt like Kevin said when they hit that 100 mark again, he goes, I was starting to feel the same way that me and Peter felt back in the day. Where are we headed? Where are we going? So he goes, me and Peter, gotten back together, and he goes, I asked him if I could come back to this. And through that is what kind of became the basis for them springboarding off of that original outline to build this run and build this story. Mm-hmm. So, you have those moments of, you feel like you can connect through any iteration to this title.
Yeah. Well, it's really dark, but it's really kind of wonderful. The plan, for anyone who didn't read along with us, this story is basically there's one turtle left in like a post-apocalyptic escape from New York flavor kind of future. Actually, one of the turtles he's hearing voices of dead turtles right?
Yes. Yes.
They joke and stuff like the turtles would, and one of them actually makes a Snake Plissken reference.
Yes.
Which is an Escape from New York reference.
It is.
And so it's really dark, but I was surprised at how heartfelt it was. I mean, when I say dark, we're talking like April O'Neil, the plucky girl companion of the turtles, is like missing an arm and a leg.
Yeah. And you know, the raving turtle, if we want to say who it is, thinks she's dead. You know,
Yeah, well, they're all dead.
Yeah,
all the turtles are dead. Splinter's dead. Casey
Casey's
Jones is dead. April should have been dead.
They think Karai is dead, the Shredder's daughter, and his grandson's now the one who's taking over New York and is running it.
Yeah, it's wild, but I would recommend if anybody in our listeners didn't read it, definitely still go seek it out and read it. It was worth a read. I enjoyed it.
And so much so now that it's been greenlit to become a video game, and there's talks of adapting it to a movie.
Oh wow, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
There's we talked about, you know, him seeing the ghost. Do we want to say who the last turtle is or not?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
So you know, you get to that moment at the end of the first issue, and April wakes him up by saying his name, and it's Michelangelo. The last turtle you think would be the last one still.
Mikey.
Yeah, because you're not aware of who it is.
No, not
For
till
a
you get
while.
to the very in that first issue, and then it's like, here we are, and then you springboard from that first issue into that second issue of the flashback of Raph.
Well, because Michelangelo was kind of the goofy one, right?
Yeah.
Well, they keep referencing like you're the one that tells the jokes.
Yeah. And he's like, you know, well, what you would imagine someone who's lost everyone he cares about.
I honestly thought it was going to be Raphael.
Yeah.
That's who my money was on, because this was my first read through of this, and I was wrong.
I'll say I enjoyed it a lot. And this is coming from someone who, you know, to me, the Turtles, even though I knew of the original comics and enjoyed them, they were always, the pop culture zeitgeist was always like the movies, the cartoons, like the movie with like Corey Feldman was the voice of one of the turtles. The first one. Remember? Yeah, it had a goofy song like Teenage Mutant Ninja Power Team, like the goofy songs that went along with it. And that was just kind of the space they occupied in my mind. And I enjoyed the heaviness of this. It's good.
There's another fun, and I don't know if you guys caught it, but through the flashback in issue 2, when Raphael's going out for revenge, there's a shot of two guys sitting in a diner, and one of them thinks he sees the turtle, and the other guy thinks he's crazy. It is Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird drawn.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Deep cuts.
There's some deep cuts. The other thing that hits, you know, the whole final issue gets me every time. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is that, you know, Mikey goes through all of his weapons that he's got for himself.
Yeah.
And the last one he finally uses is his nunchucks finally.
Yeah. He almost commits seppuku.
Yeah. In the first issue.
Is that Leonardo who had the katana?
Yeah.
And
That's sad. He lays out like all their headbands with their weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was very moving. I also loved the introduction of Casey,
Yes.
Yeah.
the daughter.
The daughter.
That was perfect. It hit all the right spots. And so I read it online, which I hate reading comics online.
Me too.
And to quote Jenna Ortega, go buy the book version, go outside and read. She didn't say this book, but she said buy a book and go read outside. So yes.
And if you get the hardback edition, it comes with an introduction by Robert Rodriguez as well.
Yeah, I read that.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Scotty, wrap this up for us, this edition of Comics Conclave.
Like Dave said, if you guys have not picked it up, I highly recommend it. Like I said, I've read this graphic novel probably more than any other over the years, probably even more than Watchmen or, you know, Dark Knight. Especially for anybody who has grown up with these characters and knows these characters and loves these characters, I highly recommend it for sure. I do recommend the physical copy. Also, if you enjoy this, they've just started, we're 2 issues in now. They're doing Last Ronin, the Lost Year, and it picks up with the ending of springboarding right off of where April and Casey is at. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
and it also fleshes out the flashback to when Mikey ended up in Japan. And when we see him, when Kevin drew the flashback of him in Japan getting attacked, they fleshed that part out because it's seen through Casey reading the journal that we see prominently throughout.
Very good.
Book. And if you were in Kevin's panel this weekend, it's not been officially announced in solicits, but he let slip that they are working on Last Ronin 2 as well. So as this wraps up, they are doing a second one as well.
Is that going to be the baby turtles? Spoilers.
That's
Spoilers.
that's where I assume they're going, because that's the other part of this Lost Year thing. You're seeing those baby turtles grow up, and it's really interesting so far to see those baby turtles and how, kind of Casey and April are falling into that kind of splinter role.
And this is becoming a video game.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah. All right. Well, it was a fun read. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys thought of this edition of Comics Conclave. If you read The Last Ronin, let us know how what you enjoyed, specific parts you enjoyed, what you thought of it. Also, if you have thoughts about Shazam 2, did you see Shazam 2? Or have you stayed away from it because you heard it was bad? It's not.
Please watch.
It's really good.
Go watch.
Tell us your thoughts on all that. Stay tuned because we have a special treat for you at the end of this episode. But first, I'm going to tell you the things I normally tell you. Please subscribe to our podcast, Pop Culture Pastor, if you haven't already. If you haven't already, rate and review us. That helps us out, especially if you're going to leave us a good review. That's nice.
Don't be a jabroni.
And also follow us on Facebook. We have a community group on Facebook as well. Find the page, follow it, find the community group, and join that as well. Anybody can join, and follow us on Twitter. And pretty soon we'll have other social media outlets as well. But keep on watching for that. Now, the special thing that I've been telling you about. Somebody made a rock outro for the show. It's a group called Blood Sweat.
My favorite band name right now.
All one word, Blood Sweat, capital B, capital S. Please enjoy. There's a full version of this song coming soon. But here is the outro version of Pop Culture Pastor, our theme song, ska/rock version. Here you go. We'll see